Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tony Fleischman with ISE, joined today by Charles Hood, one of my coworkers, who many
Hello.
of you have probably known for quite some time. This is the second in our series of Walk, Run, Fly with Infor OS. And this event really came out of requests we had from people at InPower asking if we could repeat some sessions specific to the Infor OS. So happy to have you all join us. If you didn't attend last week's session, no worries. We've already posted in the chat the recording to last week's session. I'm also confident that you can join us midstream here for the content for today. So we're glad to have you with us. This session will also be recorded, and you'll get a link to that recording probably tomorrow. We do have everyone muted. If you have questions, you can either use the Q&A option or the chat function already open, and we'll be watching for those updates throughout the event between myself and Monica Hill, our Zoom keeper. We had really great attendance for last week's session, a lot of questions, and we welcome the same type of interaction again. Last week, I mentioned that MJ from Infor, we were hoping to have him join us, and he is with us today from the UK. So very glad to have him with us. He's part of the Compass group. He has a lot of real world work that he's done with Infor OS, with the Infor ERPs, with Infor applications, and with other applications. So if we get into some discussions about deeper integration or the functionality within, MJ will also be one of the people contributing here today. Glad to have him with us. And the outcome of today's conversations, if you're liking what you're seeing, talk to your channel partner, speak with Infor. As I mentioned, MJ is very available to us as well. So if you're looking to understand how do you get started, where you might go with this, based on your version, based on your ERP, you name it, there's resources available to help you. So specifically for our session today, we'll start with a brief review of what we covered in last week's session, just as a little bit of a reminder. Then we'll dive deeper into some key functions of the Infor OS, including workflows, document management, the new mobile applications, and some of the enhancements that have been announced. We'll wrap up with Q&A as we need it. I mean, we're probably going for about a half an hour to 45 minutes just on the content, and we'll have the rest of the event open for Q&A. And I did mention last week about the XA channel partners ramping up. That is happening, and it'll be going starting in February as far as us ramping up with resources, sharing resources, more details, more information, you name it. So that's a good event actually just already coming out of this event. This will be session 2 of 3. We'll have one more next Wednesday, same time, same channel. Again, covering core concepts. Charles will be mixing in both PowerPoint and live code. And we look to get as deep as we need to get into Infor OS. So with that, Charles, over to you.
All right, thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Appreciate having Monica as the Zoom keeper, and especially appreciate our special guest star, MJ from the UK. It's awesome. This is session 2, and the theme is launch into 2024 with Infor OS, and then our sub-theme, walk, run, fly. So the intent of last week's session was to get us up and moving, making some progress, gaining some understanding. And then today we're going to run with some of the concepts that we learned about last week, go even deeper. And then the hope is in the next session, we'll be running so fast, we'll actually achieve liftoff. So that's what we're hoping for. And so the main goal at the bottom of my slide there remains the same. We're showing using the Infor operating services, or Infor OS, to make manufacturing organizations more competitive, collaborative, and connected. So the goal remains the same. Here is a snapshot of today's agenda. I will start with a brief review of session 1. I do recommend that you follow the link to the recording to get all the details. There was some very good Q&A last week. I definitely want to leave plenty of time for that again this week. Then we're going to look at Infor Go and other mobile apps. So we're going to look at Infor OS at mobile, talk more about homepage widgets, and then workflows and event management. And lastly, we'll talk about the Infor ERPs, XALX System 21 inside of Workspace Anywhere. And again, I want to leave plenty of time for your questions. This is a more of a colorful version of the agenda. So we're going to start with a review of session 1 last week. You may remember I started off with some basic definitions, talked about Infor OS at a high level, and then we looked at the launcher, the application launcher, talked a little bit about the fact that the interface will become the Infor OS portal instead of the Mingle portal, which is a great example of how the cloud infrastructure in Infor OS is constantly evolving and improving. I mentioned that briefly here today, just so this presentation will age well. So if someone's watching this in June and they're wondering why I'm using the old interface, it's because as of right now, January 31st, 2024, both of them can be used. But as of April 24th, the Infor OS portal will be the go forward portal, the go forward GUI, if you will, for Infor OS cloud. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. And then remember last week, we also looked at burst analytics a little bit, and then talked about the Infor artificial intelligence, including the digital assistant. And I had a few links of examples where people were interfacing with Infor OS and edge applications through the digital assistant. And then lastly, we took a look at XA running inside of System I Workspace Anywhere inside of Infor OS. All right. Just want to always be careful with my definitions. I know when you study logic, high school, college level, the first thing they tell you is you always have to define your terms. So for anyone that did miss last week, I just want to go over this real briefly so there's no confusion here. So what is Infor OS? What is ION? Infor OS means Infor operating services. Sometimes you do see that singular Infor operating service. I've seen it both ways. As those two subpoints point out, it's a framework seamlessly connecting services, and you can also think of it as a suite of tightly integrated service applications. So, software as a service. We talked a little bit last week too with Burst about data as a service. And so it's a suite, it's a framework that connects. So that's kind of a collective noun, like the word team or the word staff or something like that. So Infor operating services, Infor operating service, you'll see it both ways. Now the product, if you go back far enough, and I know some of us do, did used to be called ION. And ION means Intelligent Open Network. And ION is still part of Infor OS, very much so, very important piece. It's the middleware. It's the part that holds everything together, allows all this tightly integrated communication and integration to take place. So is ION the same as Infor OS? No. And that's what that little screen, that little box at the bottom, I took right out of one of Infor's own documents. ION is part of Infor OS. So those of you that have a long memory, 10 years or so ago, remember it was called ION, and then of course it was rebranded. You may remember it was Infor 10.0, and then it was Infor XI platform, which was like version 11, and now Infor OS. Okay, so I want to clear that up, and I definitely want to repeat this slide. This is not small potatoes. Infor has invested over $3 billion in research and development on Infor OS. That number has undoubtedly gone up since I made this slide for InPower 2022. So it might be like McDonald's where they have to, upgrade it, instead of 10 billion sold, now it's 20 billion, whatever. So I don't know if it's 3.5, I don't know what the number is, but it is over $3 billion. That's obviously huge. That is hugely huge. Infor is constantly expanding their Infor OS innovation footprint. That is definitely true. Edge applications, and then the core product, the core Infor OS, constantly a lot of R&D, a lot of innovation, and they're constantly enhancing their cloud innovation platforms. And I've just seen that. We've had at ISE a multi-tenant cloud instance of Infor OS for a little over 2 years now, and I've seen some amazing things brought in. It's really great. Okay, so let's move forward. Now we're going to talk about Infor Go, and we're going to go mobile. Okay, so Infor Go is a mobile app. It does run on Apple, iOS, and Android, Samsung, Google devices. So it's available on the App Store of both Apple and Android. And it does support that V2, that new Infor OS portal mode, if you want it to. There's a switch in the app settings where you can try the new mode. And I've actually activated that when you see the demo here in a second. Okay, very, very secure. Don't think you're compromising security at all by using Infor Go as possibly your go-to gateway into Infor OS. Maybe some people that are on the road a lot, sales reps, things like that. This might be their main gateway into Infor OS. First of all, both Infor Go and the desktop, web browser version both use the IFS for centralized authentication. So you have the same level of security for the web version and the mobile applications. In order to even access Infor Go, initially, you do have to scan a QR code from the desktop web version. And I'm sure there's a sample, that QR code there in the lower right, and that gets you authenticated on the Ion API gateway. So you have to do that to even get into the mobile device, which means you have to have logged in to the web version, the desktop version running on the web in the first place. In addition, the app security on the device requires either device authentication, you may have some biometric set up, whether it's facial recognition, thumbprint, whatever it may be, or at the very least, you do need a PIN number. So if someone in your corporation, your organization drops their cell phone or their tablet and they have Infor Go, it's not like someone can just pick up that device and they'll be able to log in. That's not true at all. Matter of fact, I get slightly annoyed. I got to enter my PIN number so many times in Infor Go, but that's actually a very, very good thing. It's a very good thing because we got to all have to be about security these days. So I want to just stress that. Also, edge applications can be included in Infor Go. So here's 3 screen captures where I was doing a configuration. I was actually running through a configured item using the enterprise configurator inside of enterprise quoting. So I want you to know it's not just the core Infor OS, it's also the edge applications as well. So I want to show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so what this window is, this is screen mirroring my iPad. I have an iPad mini, so I'm going to go ahead here, open up it and see there already. It didn't take long. It just sat still since this webinar started. So here it is. So it is kind of a home page or whatnot. So that's what's going on there. Notice there's documents, which is basically IDM. There's my enterprise quoting. I have my inbox, my notifications, and alerts, and tasks that I need to perform. All that's there. So I'll look at that first. And that, if you're seeing that unregistered, that's screener software that I'm using. So there you go. All right, so anyway, there's that in my announcements. I have 2 announcements. I can, of course, drill into those, see more if I want, make updates because I'm the one that authored those, that kind of thing. I'm not going to do that. Go back to my homepage. And then, again, IDM is in here. So I can open up documents. I can also, for example, I'm going to press the 3 dots on the top document. I can check out or check in documents. I can download them, delete them if I want. The plus sign in the upper right shows that I can add documents. And say, for example, I want to grab something from my photo library right here on my phone. Tablet, I can do that. And I'm going to be adding a document to IDM. So there we go. It's going to be a document type of document. I can update any of these attributes that I want. And remember, the attributes are what allow you to link these documents to records in your ERP system if you want to do that. Okay, so that's that. So I am actually going to do that. I'm going to save that, and notice the little message told me, yeah, let's go ahead and view the content. All right, so that's the little snapshot that I took. And there it is. So I just uploaded that document to IDM right from my mobile device. And again, check in, check out, all of that's possible here. And so again, the attributes are, you're able to enter the attributes. You can perform a search. You can see on the bottom right, and of course, so you're going to have lots of documents. You can perform a search, document type, and using other criteria. So IDM is in here. Again, I'll look at my inbox notifications. And so again, it's showing me my tasks that I need to perform. We'll talk a lot more about that when we get to workflows here in a minute. There's alerts, things that happen that were outside what our normal business processes would allow. We'll look at those when we talk about event management. And then I have just some FYI notifications. All right, so that is Infor Go. Again, there's edge applications, enterprise quotings in there. I have other home pages as well, now called workspaces in the Infor OS portal. So that's all there as well. I could go to one of those if I wanted to. And there we go. And so anyway, if I had announcements, notice there's some widgets. So that's Infor Go. I want you to get a real good taste of what's available in Infor Go. And so that you can understand there is excellent mobile support for the Infor OS platform. All righty. Okay. Now there are other mobile apps as well. Yeah, so there's more mobility. So there's, shut that down, that message. Okay, so there's IDM. Has its own app. Again, IDM does run inside of Infor Go, so I don't hardly ever use the IDM app anymore. There's Infor Go itself. We just talked about that. There is an Infor Go version for China. There's Infor Mingle. Again, since I have tasks, alerts, and notifications in IDM, I tend not to use Infor Mingle. I haven't ever really set up alarms in Ion. It's just not something I've ever been requested to do. I know where you can do that and all that, but I haven't done it. And then I sure would like if Ion OneView was available on Apple iOS. But anyway, it is for Android, so that's good. So here's that list again if you want to see a little bit. IDM has its app, Infor Go China, Infor Mingle, Ion Alarms, and Ion OneView. So let me bring over my mobile device again so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so again, IDM has its own application, but I love this, used it for a long time, but just with Infor Go, don't need it. Here's some source code, for example. Let me do that. For those that like RPG source code. So this was, I was creating a buyer with System Link. So that's a document that I have there. And again, I can check in, check out, download. Of course, if I press my little share button here, then that allows me to email this. I can print it. I have an app that allows me to print to my Epson printer. I can add this to notes. I can airdrop it to someone else with another device nearby, all those kind of things. So it's pretty cool when you combine already a very powerful tool such as these mobile apps, and then all the capabilities that your mobile device brings. So there's, for example, that I can print it to my Epson printer, I can save it to Dropbox, et cetera, open up it up in DuckDuckGo browser, et cetera, capture it to PDF, all kinds of stuff. Post it to Facebook. Not that I'm going to do that. But anyway, there you go. So you can see I can add it to Box, cloud storage, whatever I want to do. So I really like the combination here of what IDM can do and then what my device can do. But still with IDM, there's security as far as what I'm authorized to do, what I can check in, check out, that kind of thing. But I wanted you to see that. I think that's pretty cool that if I have on my mobile device and I'm right here in my office, I can print right from my mobile device from IDM if I want to. Things like that, email, things like that. All right, again, Infor Mingle, because I have Infor Go, I tend not to come here. I do once in a while just to look at the posts, but the notifications, alerts, and tasks I have in Infor Go, so I tend not to come here very much. And as I mentioned, I haven't really ever had a need to set up an Ion alarm. I know where to do it and how to do it, but I just haven't had a need to do it. But that application is there as well. All right, so those are the four, at least the four that I can run on my Apple device. Remember, for the Android, there was also the Ion One View, and if you really wanted it, there was also the Infor Go with in Chinese. All right, very good. So let's talk more about homepage widgets. And we can remember last week I was really harping on how homepages, which will be called workspaces in the new Infor OS portal, they combine information and activity across Infor OS applications. I mentioned how a burst analytics dashboard, including its dashlets, could show up on a homepage. IDM has its own widgets. Event management has its widgets. Workflow has its widgets. We'll see there's widgets with URLs and other kind of links and all that. All right, so what you can do is, if you want to maneuver your homepage or workspace, you can make it so you can basically live there. As far as an Infor OS, it can have all the high value activity associated with your particular task. Your job could be right there in the homepage using the widgets, and you could just stay in that single location. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so last week I kind of stayed on the top of the homepage. I didn't really go down into the good stuff. All the announcements was good, and this is a great slide too. But here we go. So I have announcements. These are tasks that I need to do something about. It's telling me, yesterday I had a few things it wanted me to do. Then I got even older ones. Here's some FYI notifications. Here's some posts that I have, for example, about this webinar series and whatnot. We'll talk about what's going on here with this workflow widget before too long. So here's some other workflow related widgets. Here's IDM. And so I can get into IDM documents, from this widget, which is pretty nice. So I can get right into a document, maybe check it in. I could check this one out because I haven't checked it out yet, that kind of thing. So that's possible. Go back to my homepage. This is like a carousel. It's IDM documents. They kind of scoot along as I go. And then here is just a couple of widgets with links, useful links, info related education support, whatnot. This is actually a Microsoft Teams related widget. So I look for exciting things to happen there. And then just a miscellaneous widget I have here with some XA links. So that's what I have going on there. So the widgets, again, can depend on your job, your role, and again, burst analytics in particular, dashboards and dashlets can show up there. So all kinds of neat stuff. There is a big widget catalog that you can look at and draw upon, and then you can publish those widgets to your homepage or workspace. And also, if you really want to get into this, you can actually develop your own homepage widgets. All right. Okay, now let's talk about workflows. So we saw a couple widgets there that worked with workflows, if you will, but I definitely want to, this is probably the number 2 request I receive. I mentioned last time my Infor OS journey is a little over 11 years at this point. Of course, the number 1 request I receive is integrating XA with Infor Edge applications, Infor CRM, Hexagon, EAM, Infor WMS, those kind of things. EQ, enterprise quoting now, is a big one. So the second main use for Infor OS that I get requested to help out with is developing workflows and fine-tuning workflows. So if you'll excuse me just a minute, I need to take a drink of water. All right, workflows are wonderfully powerful, no doubt about it. Love them. What a great tool that's available in Infor OS Ion. And Ion Desk has a very robust workflow modeler tool. There's 2 ways you can get a workflow going. You can publish business data, and this is typically the scenario that I work with from your IBM ERP. Infor Edge applications, of course, can start workflows. I know of a couple that the EQ application can do. or you can explicitly start a workflow. And I should add, for example, like we'll talk about event management and alerts. An alert can start a workflow, and a workflow can kick off another workflow actually too. But the two main ways I've dealt with are from publishing business data. It's host jobs in XA where you can publish a record or multiple records, or you can explicitly start a workflow. Excuse me. All right. So using a workflow, you can bring tasks and notifications to users. You can collect the user's notes, and they can add attachments as you're going along. All that can accumulate. So each step of the workflow, a user that assigned themselves to a particular task can add their own notes, and the notes accumulate. And then, of course, you can add attachments. And also workflows can be used to implement decisions. All right, let's make this a little more real. So here's, for example, something I received from a customer. They wanted, here's the business need. When a new EPDM item revision record is published from XA, they wanted to trigger a multi-branched workflow that would allow for multi-team collaboration to together populate the data for the new item revision. I think you understand what I mean. Brand new item. So yeah, there's stuff that engineering needs to add. There's data that the accounting department needs to add, the purchasing department, the manufacturing, the planning, people with production planning. So that's what they wanted. And this is kind of 50-50. You'll see the other main use for a workflow I've run into is approvals, where you can have multiple levels of approval. This would be the other main use for workflow, is a collaborative effort to build a record maybe in your ERP, like an item number, a brand new item revision. Obviously the item number's there. So what they did was they had a bare bones XA EPDM item revision, site, item, and description, just the bare bones that you need to actually create a record in EPDM, like the stocking unit measure, just the real bare bones data. And then once they had that, they published it to Infor OS Ion, and then this workflow started. And so the first people that had a crack at it were the quality control. And then depending on whether it was a manufactured or a purchased item, that's where it split, hence the multi-branched. If it was manufactured, then the engineers had to fill in BOM and routing information. If it's purchasing, then the purchasing department had to fill in, default vendor, purchasing lead times, those kind of things. Then when all of that was done, then it had to go to both the planning department and the import-export department. And then when all of that was done, then finally the costing accounting team ended up, and they did a cost roll up, and they were the ones that actually changed the implementation status and made the item active and available for the rest of XA. So here's the workflow that I modeled for them. This is fairly straightforward one. You can see the branching. You can see, for example, here there's a decision tree, yes, no. That was based on the item type. Is it a manufactured item, whether it's an end item or subassembly, or is it a purchased item? And then you can see how all three of these needed to be done before the cost accounting got to it, and then the workflow ended. Fairly simple workflow, especially compared to the one I'm about to show you. Okay, here's another one. So this is the other side of the workflow world. This is the multi-level approval workflow. So when a purchase request record was published from XA, and I think we know in the XA world, a purchase request is what the rest of the world calls a requisition, because an XA requisition only allows one line item. So this purchase request is like a wrapper around requisitions. So whenever one of those purchase requests was published, it triggered this multi-level workflow that allowed for all levels of approval that the business rules required. So in a lot of these decisions, I don't know how well you can see it, but a lot of decisions were dollars. Like this was, is it more than 5,000? Then it just kept going up the dollar amounts more and more. Here's over 10,000, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the more money was being requested in a requisition, the further up the the hierarchy at that corporation it needed to go. And then lastly, we did some stuff in XA on the back end. If it came back approved, then we actually created a PO from it. So here's that workflow. I would streamline this a little more. I actually did this back in 2014. So it's kind of like, if you go into business for yourself, you keep the first dollar that you earned, framed on the wall. So this is my first workflow, real workflow. So Yeah, I would streamline it, but it does show the multi-branching really well, which is one reason I thought I'd show you that. And here's a sample email notification. And this is one of those collaborative workflows where you're doing a brand new item revision. And so it's telling you, hey, someone in the import-export department needs to do the import-export related task, and then they need to click on the done button. And so if it's an approval workflow, usually it's approve or reject. But if it's one of the collaborative workflows, then the button usually says done. Okay, so let's take a look at a live workflow here. Okay, so what I want you to see, we're going to go into Ion Desk. And I've got a workflow here. Okay, so here's one for PO approval. Fairly straightforward. First of all, click the hamburger icon, get my screen real estate. I don't really need that either. So it's just fairly straightforward. This yes, no decision is basically, is it over $100? If it's under $100, it just automatically gets approved. It flows through. So petty cash kind of thing. If it's over 100, then there's an announcement. Hey, this PO is in a approval workflow to everybody that's on the distribution list. There's another decision here, whether it's over 1,000 or not. If it's under 1,000, but of course over 100, then the first level approval suffices and it flows through. If it's over 1,000, then there's a whole second level of approval that needs to take place. Okay, so again, under 100 flows through. It's a kind of petty cash situation. And then if it's over 100, but it's under 1,000, it just needs one level. If it's over 1,000, it needs two levels. So those pretty straightforward workflow. So let's see what's going to happen here. All right, so I'm in XA inside a system workspace anywhere. So what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to do a real quick copy of a purchase order that's under $100. Okay, I'm not going to belabor the point. So if you don't understand XA procurement, that's fine. The whole point here is the workflow. Okay, so there we go. Copy. Thank you very much. Yep. All right, very good. Come over here. I'm going to look under the status, see what's going on. And this is IDF architecture. So analogous stuff should be available for LX and System 21 as well. All right, so everything's good. Published, the purchase was published because I populated the replication. Yeah, there's my Ion bod. I could even take a look at the bod. It won't take the time to do that, but I could if I wanted to. Going back to Ion, this was purchase order 30. Okay, so I should see this handy little tool here. I should see the purchase order 30 has come through. Okay, there it is. So XA did indeed publish the sync purchase order bod. And so by going through that workflow, you may remember that that was only $69.24. And sure enough, in my email already, I've gotten this. This purchase order does not require approval. And so it's done. It's basically done. So that's just basically an FYI notification. There's other ways to see this, of course, home pages. So that should be my top notification. Once this notice purchase order 30, there it is. So I'm going to get this notification. And this again is an FYI. I can basically remove it if I want to. I can drill back into that record in XA if I want to do that. I see the basic information, but that one was a freebie. It passed right through, so there's not much to see there. If I want to, I can take a look at that workflow viewer widget, and I can see exactly what branch through the workflow it took. Okay, it took the bottom. Remember this decision point, are you over 100 or not? It was under 100, so there it goes. It flowed right under here. And that's what it did. All right, very good. I'll do one more that'll go through the upper branch, and then we'll let that be. All right, so let's take one of these really, really big ones. $124,000. Okay. So I hope you appreciate what's going on here. You have opportunity for many people to collaborate together and multi-levels to approve or reject. So there's purchase order 31. Let me just make sure everything's going well. It's in process. It's oops, should probably do this. Okay, there we go. Perfect, great. All right, good. So there's my ION BOD, XML BOD business object document. So I'm good. Okay, so now this time I'm going to go right back to the homepage. And let's see, that was 31. And give this a chance to update. So there it is. Now this time, because that was so huge, it wasn't a freebie, it wasn't petty cash. So now this time I actually have something I need to do. So here it is. This workflow requires approval. So I'm on a team. I'm going to assign it to myself. Again, I can add attachments here. I'll do a real quick note here so you can see that I can add some input. Oh. All right, very good. Okay, obviously I could give reasons if I was going to, particularly if I was going to decline it, but I am going to approve it just to keep the workflow going. There's another task I need to do. Okay, so now I can go back down to this viewer for this particular workflow, and there it is again. Oops, that's the second level. Let me not quite do that yet. Let me click on this little trident kind of thing, and that updates that workflow so you can see what happened here. So this time it was definitely over 100. I got the notice. I didn't look at the notification, but I did get the notice, both email and in my widget and on my mobile device too, of course, in Infor Go. So I did the first level approval. There it's me. That's me. I can't deny it. That was definitely me. And so because it was over $1,000, it went in this branch here, okay, the upper branch. And now it's saying, hey, somebody needs to perform second level approval. So that's what I will do. Okay. All right. Of course, normally this would be a different person. Obviously, I'm wearing all the hats. Okay. Good. All right. And I'm approving it. Okay, so that then, that's another task I need to do. So anyway, that now has finished. So that workflow is completely done. And that's what it's basically telling me here. It was approved by a second level approver. And there's actually going to be another notification coming through there as well. That's, and again, emails and Infor Go have been populated as well. All right, I hope you appreciate that little tour of workflows. This is now
Question on that one, Charles.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Workflow, what do people need to make this work? Do they have to have ION running and Infor OS? Do they have to have Infor OS ION in the cloud?
Okay, if you have Infor OS on-prem, this definitely works on-prem. Like I said, I did that requisition approval workflow on-prem back in 2014. I do like the workflow modeler in the cloud better. There's some neat stuff. I don't know if you saw it. There's actually a little Coleman button. You can actually include AI in your workflows, which is pretty cool. You definitely need Infor OS. You need Infor OS to model it. And then ION needs to be running, actively running so that when you publish your data from XA, that it's going to go over to ION, and then ION's going to pick it up and know how to route it into the workflow. So yeah, you definitely need Infor OS either on-prem or cloud. I definitely strongly prefer the cloud version. And then of course, everything needs to be active. And there's stuff you need to do with your ERP as well. You need to set up what's called a system link destination, system link transformations, make sure your publishing unattached jobs are started, your queue batch, your job queue that handles publishing is not being held, all those kind of things. And then in Link Manager, Linky definitely needs the right processes to be running. Your 5 system link processes should be running. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
One clarification on that, Charles, correct me if I go wrong, but a an Infor OS user, let's imagine it's a VP of marketing that has to approve a certain spend. That user does not need to be an XA user. Obviously, if they go into XA or ERP, then they need authorization. But an Infor OS user might be someone who never gets to ERP, like a VP of marketing, that is just saying, yes, I approve.
That's absolutely right. They need to be a person. There needs to be a Infor OS person set up for them. But no, they do not need to be a user in XA. They can just be a user set up in Infor OS in order to do approvals.
But Charles showed two there, one going right into the ERP system, another one that really didn't have to.
Right,
certain users might need to get into ERP, certain users don't.
Exactly, yep. So very good, thank you. Excellent question. Now, event management,
can workflows be used with custom business objects created by in Integrator?
Okay, so at that point, you'd need like a custom bod, or maybe like as I'm recommending more and more these days, a REST API approach, and go in through Ion API Gateway. So I don't, MJ, if you have further insight there, that's how I would approach that, either through a custom bod or through a REST API.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. So if there is a use case that is not supported by a standard business object document, then you can always create custom bods to trigger a workflow or a document flow, and then once the workflow or the document flow has been triggered, any putbacks into the ERP can either be done using that same bod, or it can be done using REST APIs like Charles just mentioned.
Thank you, MJ.
We did have a good amount of discussion about BODs, business object documents, in our first session. Infor provides many BODs, but we often assume that the BOD provided by Infor, likely you may want to change it, update it. You need technical skills to do so. But we did cover a good amount of that in the first session.
Yes, yeah, you can definitely go into the Infor schema there and define your bod noun, and then have your verb, and or I'll be honest, what I'm doing more and more these days is existing integrations on existing bods. Sure, I'll enhance them, expand them using the tools that are available. But if it's a brand new situation where the bod doesn't exist, then I'm kind of going with the Ion API these days, with the REST APIs. Just for full transparency there. But knowing how to do custom bods is still a very viable skill, very valuable skill. So, and that is a viable option as well.
Very good.
Event management is always a little anticlimactic after workflows. So this is basically, it's another powerful tool. I've only had to create one of these for a customer once. I've done some internally. So you set up what's called a monitor, and Ion Desk has a monitor creation tool. It's not a flow chart, so it doesn't look nearly as nice and sleek as the workflow. But anyway, event management, what it allows is you can have alerts be generated for published business data. Again, the business data is published. It goes through the alert, the monitor checks to see what's going on. So I've got an example of 4 possible event monitors that you might want to set up alerts for, like the stock level of an item in a warehouse is low or 0. So a sync inventory count bod got published, and we're below our safety stock, or we're absolutely out. So then you want to publish an alert. You have a manufacturing order that's been open for 45 days in released or active status. So what in the world's going on there? A PO was created for over a specified dollar amount. So one of the reasons I chose that humongous PO for that second example of the workflow is that actually kicked off an alert as well. So I had a PO alert for over $10,000 in it. The alert triggered and the workflow triggered. And then my 4th example would be a CO line item where the request date is too soon. It's like, hey, we can't build it that fast, that kind of thing. All right, so not to belabor this, especially after workflows, but here's an example. So modeling a real life business case. So whenever a purchase order is published from XA, an amount of over 10,000 or more, then a monitor will be activated, an alert will be sent, whether it's Infor Go, whether it's the desktop or email, or all three. So this was a purchase order BOD, again, a sync purchase order BOD. They extracted or the extended amount out of the BOD, and then they're seeing if the extended amount is over $10,000. And if it is, then you follow the you write the message out that's defined in the distribution. All right, very good. We had a fair amount of, you just saw me using XA a lot inside of Workspace Anywhere, inside of Infor OS. So I do want to go back to, I just like this example. It makes a lot of sense to me, the Matryoshka dolls. So you have the ERP database, you have your business logic programs on the IBM I typically, then you have your IDF level 2 metadata layer, that Java and metadata layer that you can see very easily in Enterprise Integrator, all the Java attributes for the particular database fields. Then you have Workspace Anywhere, as long as you're running Netlink. So for IDF level 2, if you're running Netlink, then you can have, it can run inside of Workspace Anywhere, and that can run standalone. It doesn't have to run in Infor OS, but there are advantages for it to be in Infor OS, like drillbacks and like the context app with the widget viewer, the context widget viewer that's on the right side of the screen becomes available to you inside of Infor OS. And I'm sure there's going to be more and more advantages over time. All right, so just real quickly, the reason System I Workspace Anywhere needs to be there, at least for the time being, is not all of XA, and I don't think all of LX or System 21 are all in IDF level 2 yet. So Workspace Anywhere does allow you to run a 5250 emulator. You can run commands, IBM System I commands, or you can run like XA, for example, menu options that aren't in IDF level 2, like the COM shipping workbench to create shipments, maintain shipments, things like that. Okay, for Workspace Anywhere, Chrome, Edge, or Apple Safari, you do want to configure your browser according to the client settings in the Workspace Anywhere installation and admin guide. And then as far as a PDF viewer that's attached to your browser, Infor recommends the Acrobat Reader DC. But any plugin that'll work properly and adequately is good. Here's the all-important KB article for all things related to Workspace Anywhere, 196.3350. Okay, there's two ways to install it. Right on the IBM I itself, we've had great success with that, or you can have the Apache Tomcat on a Windows server. There are special built-in widgets for spool files, jobs, and messages. There's also the quick launch box. I showed you a lot of that last week. There's a 5250 emulator. We definitely saw that. And then today you saw me using Netlink Business Objects. All right, just two last quick things here. For further information, remember last week I mentioned start with your Infor or your Infor channel partner. There's also the YouTube channel. There's also Documentation Central. So there's the link for that. Select technology platform and then select a subtopic. And then there's Infor U, and there's also mentor-apprentice relationships. For example, I've been blessed recently, ISE, with an apprentice, and this apprentice is extremely sharp in picking things up really, really well, which is super, super encouraging for me. All right, here's what's next time. The Infor OS portal, the V2 of the GUI, ION data flows, the IMS connection points, ION API, Interform, and then in context widgets. And that is it for me. And I want to open it up now to questions and answers.
And we do a quick comment too. Charles mentioned the WebSphere versus the Tomcat server. One of the things we've seen is if we can put everything on natively on the IBM I, that reduces any needs to have auxiliary Windows servers that can be in the cloud, can be on premise, etc. So all fully local on the IBM I server, same partition, same environment, you name it. That works very well. We do have some other additional questions, Charles, that came back related to workflow. What kind of indicators can we get from the workflows? For example, can we get a report to identify delays, due dates not accomplished, time used by a person in any task, or bottlenecks in a different step of the workflow?
Okay, well, first of all, workflows are extremely versatile. There are APIs that can be invoked from any place in the workflow that you need them. There is built-in escalation capabilities. So if John Doe or Jane Roe is not doing their job and hasn't responded quick enough, it will get escalated, and you can kick off special notifications and all that, because things can get stale. You can define when they get stale, and escalations and other notifications can happen. But then all through the workflow model or architecture, there's ways to call various APIs to obtain data and reports and things like that.
All right, thank you, Charles. Next question, Charles mentioned REST APIs in XA. We don't have them yet based on announcements from Infor about REST APIs coming out in the IDF. Can you clarify that, Charles, of the REST APIs that are available?
Okay, I'll start, and then I definitely want to do a handoff to MJ here. But okay, so just real quickly, I did a big project recently integrating XA with WMS. Okay, they were long-term ISL customers, and the quote-unquote releasing a shipment within ISL didn't actually release a COM order, and hence it didn't actually produce a process shipment bod. And also upgrading to ML, material logistics, from agility was not an option. That was not an option within the time frame we had available. So what we did there was we went the REST API route with the Swagger documents and Postman and JSON and all that, and it worked really well. Now, we were using Infor Professional Services on the WMS side, so they were more than capable of receiving in the JSON through the REST API on their side. So this functionality is there. There's ways to do it. But yeah, obviously XA wants REST APIs to be more and more baked in. I think you've heard Ross Freeman, others from the Compass team, Phil Joseph, whatnot, that the link manager, the new version of Linky, is actually going to be REST API based. So there are ways to invoke REST APIs from XA to make things happen when you're communicating with Infor OS. And now I better hand off the rest of the answer to that to MJ, because I know he knows a lot more about this than I do.
Yeah, I think Julie's question is around the inbound REST API capability in XA, and not so much being able to invoke a REST API from XA.
Okay.
And to answer that question, Julie, it's one of the priorities. And when you come to the next Empower, you will be able to see a minimal viable product as far as the REST API layer for XA. So it's in the works.
All right, very good. MJ mentioned Empower. If you've registered through the Empower website through Work Out Loud, there's information up there about Empower coming up starting on September 23rd for those of you who have attended in the past. Very similar to the event, but user groups are already active on making it bigger and better than last year. We'll go back to that question just for a second. There was also a question about event management. Wouldn't XA users just use subscriptions? Or I guess maybe the question is there a time when they would use subscriptions as compared to the event management from Infor OS?
Oh, yeah. So the publish and subscribe is always there. It's a great tool. And so that is always available, but event management's available there as well. So if you're dealing with a business object that has a defined sync bod, and you have Infor OS, then I would go that route. But yeah, the publish and subscribe is always there. So certainly don't want to denigrate that tool at all. I like that tool.
Okay, so some similarities between the two?
Yeah, because the publish and subscribe can invoke System Link, it can invoke an RPG program, it can send emails, that kind of stuff. Probably the event manager is a little more flexible once you get into it, because you can extract the different elements out of the bod and get pretty fancy with your distribution messages and who's going to get what based on what kind of thing. So I'd say the event manager is a little more flexible, but for fairly straightforward applications, publish and subscribe is fine.
Yeah, you don't get the mobility capability that the event management tool brings to the table with publish and
Mhm.
subscribe. That's one.
Very
And
true. Very true.
the other big opportunity is when you have an ecosystem that does not have just XA, but other Infor or even non-Infor applications, then you can leverage the event management capability in Infor OS with those applications as well.
Yep, that's true.
Good point. Thank you.
That's true. Yep. Thank you, MJ.
All right. I think this is more of a comment, but MJ, you may have some thoughts on this. Sightline provides several monitors and alerts slash workflows and activation policies by default in SaaS or imported on premise. It would be nice if XA had such content as well. So I think we just talked about the monitors and alerts with the XA events, but workflows and activations, I think the answer here is we really need Infor OS to go down that path. Is that correct? MJ, any thoughts on that one?
I can barely hear Tony. So if the question was
sorry.
addressed to me,
Sightline provides several monitors and alerts, workflows and activation policies by default in SaaS or imported on premise. It would be nice if they had such content as well.
Right. So I see the question. James, I'll probably answer the question with a question. How many of those monitors and alerts have you been able to just activate and it's worked for a customer? So we've looked at some of these in the past where there is a monitor, for example, when a new vendor has been created. So it's really a question of what business value does that bring to the customer. And you know, so if you have any examples that you think would be a plug and play type situation, James, let us know, and we will see what we can do to incorporate that in XA.
All right.
Right.
Thank you, MJ. Next question. I'd like to know more about the mentor / apprentice that Charles mentioned. Is that something through Infor? The short answer to that one is no. That is someone at ISE that we're working to ramp up, who's been with us for a long time. So we're ramping up our services as are most of the channel. MJ, I'm not aware of a mentor program or an apprentice program through Infor. That's correct? Okay, I'm not aware of one. I'm not sure if MJ can hear me, but go ahead.
Charles, I can't comment on that because unfortunately I don't know much about that myself.
Okay.
But I'll make a note of it and then I'll see. I don't know exactly what you meant, Charles, about that.
Oh, okay, sure.
That's
so
one of Charles' coworkers that we're ramping up.
Yeah. I just had a really good example of someone that's learning Infor OS very rapidly, much more rapidly than I did. And it's just encouraged me greatly. She's really, really sharp. So it's been great. And I'd love to see other situations like that. So, but what I basically wasn't trying to encourage everyone is if you have someone in your organization that knows even a little more about Infor OS than you do, grab them and or her, go out to lunch, talk about it, learn, set aside some times, just find these people and learn from them as best you can. And then I'd encourage everybody to try to be a mentor. I think I told you my story last time. The very first Ion installation I did 11 years ago, my manager and I had just been down to Alpharetta, Georgia for a Infor Ion training, and we were just crammed full of information. We didn't know how to use it. So he told me when we needed to do this live the first time, he said, this is brand new. I don't know exactly what we're getting into. This may not succeed, Charles. He said, this really, I don't know what's going to happen. You may not succeed. He said, so that's point one. He said, point two, failure is not an option. So it was a little bit sink or swim for me. But so I'd like others to learn in a little bit safer environment than that. That's what I'm getting at is learn from your peers, find people that know, use the communities go to the YouTube channel, take the classes at Infor U. Matter of fact, let me, as long as I haven't timed out. No, I haven't.
We do have a few more questions too.
Okay. Whoops. I don't know if I can't get that doohickey out of the way. I'm sorry. Anyway, so Infor U has multiple tracks. So I was just recommending that you go to the technology stack learning path. And then there's tons of good content there. That's all. So you can see there's some dedicated to burst, and then there's a whole bunch of Infor OS. Start with this one here, Infor OS all users, and you'll learn a lot just by going through that.
Very good. Next question. How is security handled in IBM as far as controlling which users or groups being able to see or access specific documents? For instance, purchase orders, payroll reports, etc. So security in IBM.
Yeah. So Infor OS in the right now it's still called under Mingle has user management. You can set up groups, you can set up custom groups and custom tasks as well, and you can define pretty well. It's different from cross app security in XA. I'm not real familiar with the security in
right. So
yeah.
Charles, what you can do is you've got predefined security roles.
Right.
And you can create your own if you like, and you can assign those roles to users. And in IDM, everything is controlled using access control lists. And those access control lists, you can identify whether a person can check in, check out. It's read-only access, display. So all of those criteria is something that you define on the in the ACL, and you also have security roles assigned to that ACL, and that is how you control the documents in IDM. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, MJ. You just said it much better than I would have.
All right. Next question. Can you touch on activation policies for workflows?
Yeah, I strongly recommend them. I like them a lot because you get to extract out of the BOD extra elements, especially if you've enhanced the BOD, then you can bring in those extra elements as input parameters, and they can even become output parameters. The other neat thing that I like about the activation policies is they allow you to when the workflow is done, it'll push back a process BOD. So if you pushed out a sync purchase order BOD, then it'll push back a process purchase order BOD. You can see I have that thing going here. And so that's great. So you can push data back into XA, LX, or System 21. So that's why I like, those are the main reasons I like activation policies. MJ may want to share a little more, but I strongly recommend you wrap your workflow with an activation policy.
Okay. Last one we have is just a comment. The value is examples to facilitate their learning. So I think this comes back to the sightline comment and just having, and I think Charles had touched on it. I mean, the more we can be sharing ideas, sessions like this, the Infor U content, you name it. And I think what we always see is can we borrow something that's already been developed and enhance it? And that answer, of course, is yes.
Yes.
All right, we do not see any additional open questions. We're also a little bit past the bottom of the hour. So Charles and MJ, thank you very much. Monica, thank you for your help. This recording will be available soon. And we will be back here a week from now and hope to see you all here to join us again. And Charles, really appreciate all your work here. Oh, yeah, glad to do it. Glad to serve the greater IBMI Compass Group community in this way. And I appreciate MJ's input today. It was invaluable, and your comments, and then Monica for being our Zoom keeper. So, and thank you for everybody that showed up. I really appreciate all you participants being here, and great questions. This is really great, these Q&A. Next week, I'll try to leave a little more time for Q&A. So too much content. That's good. Yeah, it is a good problem to have, I guess. All right. Thank you, everyone. Glad we could present to you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Yep. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.